Welcome to Outspoken, where we dive deep into the topics and intersection of technology, money, business, and passion. I'm your host, Shana Cosgrove.
I totally believe that everybody in an organization has value. You just need to make sure that they are empowered to share these really innovative and creative ways of doing new things. One of the things I've learned when you're doing something hard, you don't have the easier thing to compare it to. You might find out that it's not easier, even though you thought it would be. So a total of 38 years, starting at 17. So until 2 years ago, my entire adult life was serving in the Air Force.
At Nyla Technology Solutions, we believe America's warfighters deserve the absolute best technology advantage on the battlefield. We are an AI engineering company focused on helping the Department of War move faster, think smarter, and achieve true information dominance. Our team builds mission-ready artificial intelligence, advanced data platforms, and decision advantage capabilities that help leaders see clearly and act decisively. In a world where the speed of information can determine victory, Nyla is committed to delivering strength through innovation, ensuring our nation stays secure, competitive, and ready for whatever comes next. Nyla Technology Solutions is an SBA-certified 8A, woman-owned small business. Our contract vehicles include GSA Mass, 8A Stars 3, and MDA Shield. For more information, partnering opportunities, or the latest job openings, please check out our website, www.nyla.io, or email us at hello@nyla.io.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Mary, for being here this morning. I'm very excited to chat with you.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Thanks for your flexibility, the word of the day, with my changing schedule.
I can't believe that I have actual advice to give to a 3-star general, a cyber expert 3-star general that you guys are missing because I'm not sharing this, me giving Mary advice as growing her business or not growing her business or how to negotiate and all the terms about negotiating, which I do have experience with.
Yes, I think that's really important. People are like, oh, you came out with all this experience. And I look at all these very successful women and maybe veterans that served not until retirement that went out into industry and created their own businesses from scratch. I really admire that.
When I think of you, a 3-star general, retired, it's just so impressive and intimidating. You are very kind and gracious. My friend's in sales, and she's very good at sales. One of the things she taught me is that you have value. Maybe I'm not as high in the ranks, but no matter where you are, maybe you are just at the frontline operator. That unique perspective is incredibly valuable, and it's a sharing of those two different roles.
Yeah, I agree with that. I tell a story about the SMART majors. So I was a 3-star, and the Secretary of the Air Force wanted us to solve some hard problems. In the end, it was a group of relatively junior majors who were dispersed throughout different parts of the Air Force, had met, had kept in touch, and shared the challenges. The one at the National Reconnaissance Office was like, oh, I can help you with that. One of them that worked with our distributed ground station was like, oh, I can help you with that. All of a sudden, they had cost effectively using capabilities that the government had already bought, put them together in a new way to solve a pretty complex problem. The next time we briefed him, he approved it and gave them some money that they needed for more licenses for software that we were already using. I ran into him and he's like, hey, any of your smart majors brought you any more solutions? I totally believe that everybody in an organization has value. You just need to make sure that they are empowered to share these really innovative and creative ways of doing new things.
Yeah, it's innovation at all levels and people having the guts to move forward, even if they weren't fully authorized to work through solutions. I love that. That's a great MacGyver story. So you guys called it the smart majors.
I call it the smart rate.
That's awesome. How many years did you serve? So you were recently retired, 2 years out.
Yeah, 2 years. I was on active duty for just over 34 years. I went to the Air Force Academy. And so that's another 4 years in uniform in a different way while you're getting your degree and learning about the Air Force. So a total of 38 years starting at 17. So until 2 years ago, my entire adult life was serving in the Air Force.
Let's go back. What inspired you as a young high school student to apply to the Air Force Academy? The application itself is no easy activity.
Right. Because if you go back that far, everything was on paper and through the mail. There was no online.
I have one of those word processor typewriters at home, though.
I didn't even have one of those.
I had the printer that had the holes where you had to rip the sides off.
Right. I eventually had a dot matrix printer, but not in college. I was in the last class without computers at the Air Force Academy. The class right behind me, they were issued Z248 computers, and the Academy administration was very nervous about whether the new cadets would be able to use these computers. I had a roommate from the year behind me my senior year. She let me use her computer, and I was like, this is amazing. No more whiteouts. I mean, that's how old I am.
Yeah. Why did you apply? What was the motivator?
A combination of a couple things, some inspirational and some practical. I do remember in 8th grade when the first space shuttle launched. I was always interested in science, and I just thought that was amazing. I thought maybe I could be a mission specialist or something. Most of the astronauts at that time came through some sort of military channel, especially the pilots. The other more practical concern is I was in a blended family and I was the fourth kid to start college in 4 years. That is pretty expensive. I thought maybe I could get a ROTC scholarship. So I filled out all the forms for an ROTC scholarship. I got accepted to Purdue. I got offered an ROT scholarship. Then on those forms, there was a little box that said, if you're also interested in the Air Force Academy, check here. So I checked here, and I ended up failing the hearing test for my physical, and they gave me a waiver to go to the Air Force Academy, but they rescinded the offer for my ROTC scholarship to Purdue.
Who would have thought?
It makes no
Did
sense.
you even know you had a hearing issue?
No, because it's at the lowest frequency. Most people don't talk at that frequency. So, no, I had no idea. The reason they were so concerned about it is if it had been a higher frequency, and if I had said, oh, I've gone to a lot of concerts or things, that would have been expected. But because it was a little unusual that it was low frequency. So, a couple of my friends at the academy would make jokes. If you talk real low, can't hear you.
That's funny.
So off I went to Colorado.
Wow. And no one else in your family served in the military?
My father served, he was drafted during Vietnam.
Oh my
So
gosh.
he ended up not going to Vietnam, and he ended up serving as a finance clerk at Walter Reed. He probably just over 2 years or so was in the Army, and I was probably middle school. I said, if I can't get a scholarship, then maybe I'll join the Army. He said, no daughter of mine is joining the beeping, beep, beep, beep Army. Despite him never graduating from college, he made it very clear that he expected me to find a way to get to college with as much financial help as he would be able to provide, or some way. Air Force was okay. He approved of the Air Force. The Army was off limits for his daughter.
Now, the academies are not known for being a fun college experience. When you think about some people who go to college and it's 5 years or 6 years, lots of parties and lots of other activities. What was it like to have gotten through something so challenging, purposely challenging? What do you think made you successful in not just surviving that, but thriving in that environment?
One of the things I've learned when you're doing something hard, you don't have the easier thing to compare it to. You might find out that it's not easier, even though you thought it would be. Now that I have children that have successfully graduated from civilian institutions, which were challenging in their own way, I think it's hard to compare what you're doing in the moment to what you might have been doing. I was so young, and it was a way to get my degree. The thought of not doing it wasn't really an option.
Yeah. So you just heads down and went through it.
I might have picked an easier major. I chose chemistry because I love science, and I tested out as freshman chemistry. They give you all these tests, and I had taken lots of science. Chemistry gets pretty challenging pretty quickly.
Oh yeah,
So,
ProChem, TChem, major
so
weed out classes. Yeah.
yeah, that's when all the people want to go to med school switch from chemistry to biology is second semester.
How did you end up being a cybersecurity expert? So you worked not only at U.S. Cyber Command, which is something that didn't exist when you went to the Air Force, but your last position was in the Joint Staff in the C4.
Yeah, I started out in intelligence. And because I was a STEM major and not a military history or political science or something like that, I had to compete when they asked me, what will you do with a chemistry degree in intelligence? I said, analysis is analysis. My science background were doing hypothesis testing and feedback loops and things like that. So I was a little bit of a rarity starting out in intelligence, but I think at just the right time, as things started to become much more technical, GPS guided bombs, precision things, laser things, jamming, there was a lot of things that our adversaries were developing in new technologies that needed to be defeated. In that space, that Venn diagram of intelligence, technology, and developing countermeasures, what we found is having a technical background could really be an asset in addition to the traditional analysis, political insights, and intent. Our traditional communications career field also had their requirements, laying fiber for tactical radios and deployed environments. They had to bring on our first computers. When the intelligence field developed all these new sensors and all these new collection capabilities, that created a lot of data that then had to be sent to people to use. And there wasn't a way to do that. What we found is a little bit of a merger of how do you create new satellite communication pathways? How do you store full motion video data and then send that through very small bandwidths? How do you store very sensitive information, which led to the creation of our classified networks and classified computing so that you could do analysis against that data? Over time, the need to develop the capabilities to support what was happening through the evolution of the intelligence field ended up bringing me into the cyber field and knowing what the adversary was doing to try to collect our information. We didn't even have words and lexicon for this in the beginning. We argued for quite a while. What do you call this type of information? For a while, it was digital network intelligence was what we called text messages that we might be collecting. I think the starting out as a technical person in a field that was not known to have a lot of technical people and then being able to help talk to the people that morphed into our cyber workforce from the old communications. Phones helped me speak more than one language to help move forward. At that time, they merged the intelligence and cyber leadership on the air staff in the 826. That made it a full circle for me when I first became a 3-star.
So you always had the passion for just solving the problem at hand.
I do. I love a challenging problem. And I used to experiment with technology at home. You may have similar things as you also have children. As the technology that initially we only had at work became more available to people, home desktops and home dial-up internet to eventually our own Wi-Fi networks. I wanted to do the same thing that we were doing at work, which is to keep people safe on the internet, prevent them from doing things they shouldn't be doing. I wanted to do the same thing at home as I gave my children access to these things, starting with their webkins, their little plush stuffed animals that you could log on and create an online world, maybe a precursor to a Minecraft.
Roblox,
So, yeah, a precursor to that. And I wanted them to be safe. So I would do things like split my Wi-Fi into what we called the K and B network, the Kelly and Brian network, and the MAD, the MAD network for mom and dad. Then put different times when it was available and block certain things, gambling and
You became your home
pornography.
CIO.
I did. What I found is we ended up having our own little cyber wars at home as my kids learned, especially my son, about VPNs. Get around.
So funny when you have children that are just like you.
I know.
That's the funniest part, right?
And a husband who was not. I had blocked gambling, and where if you want access to this thing, it would automatically send me a thing. And it would say, honey, I want to check my lotto. Can you please unblock the website?
I'm smiling because of your story. I think one of the challenges today, unfortunately, is what people have at home, they want at work. Now people don't have what they have at home and they don't have the freedoms, but there is a lot of risk. One of the biggest things today is everything's becoming a sensor. Mainly your home phone has so much information and data access about you personally, and you don't know the provenance of who's built that software, what they're doing with that software, what they're doing with your data. Because if it's free, you are the product. So you brought up your children, and you've had this esteemed military career where you have traveled and lived in multiple places. What do you typically give as success for people who want to achieve very high professionally, and yet it is an impact to being a great parent?
I think I would rephrase the professional accomplishments because, again, in the moment, you're just trying to get through the day. I did have my children a little later. I was comfortable in my role as an Air Force officer and as a leader, and that was definitely helpful. But I had to learn a lot about being a parent and how to take care of your children and do both. What I learned is, again, not to compare myself or our family to other families, other people, and their choices. I found that was particularly important once they started school. My husband, who was in the Marine Corps, when we were not stationed together, or he was at sea, or when he was deployed, we treated it like this is our normal. We didn't feel sorry for ourselves. We missed him, but it was our normal. What I found is it was a difficult concept for some of their teachers, especially when they were younger. When I would come to the parent-teacher conference by myself or a daddy-daughter lunch or something, they would say, oh, my dad doesn't live with us. They would assume other things, that we are divorced or things like that. Everyone has their own normal. Some people would say I could never be separated from my spouse, but I thought he was the best Marine. He would keep Marines safe while he was deployed to Helmand. He thought that I was also very good at my job and would provide the best information, intelligence, threat warning to people in the field. So we were both so proud of each other that we decided to stay on the career tracks that we pursued without judgment to people who might choose something different for their family. So my advice is what you decide is best for you is your normal. There's nothing to be gained by trying to compare yourself or allow other people who have made different choices to pass judgment on your choices.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. I think I personally have really struggled with comparing myself to others and holding true to what I think is best for me. The problem I think with social media today is the comparison is really hard. You're sitting there scrolling, mainly mindlessly scrolling, and worst, it's a habit. And you see all these other people's lives coming up of, look how great it is. Of course, it's a moment captured and not everything you're seeing, or it's just how they feel at that moment too, because sometimes you make a choice and then later you're like, that wasn't a great choice.
Yeah, especially social media today, there's a very high percent probability that it's not real at all. That with Sora, filters, and AI, that what you're looking at never existed. You've probably seen some of those for a while. We believed that humans would be able to do AI detection. And so they had the comparisons, a little test of the day. Which photo is AI? Which photo is real? We're way past that. AI is not producing photos with people with 6 fingers and 3 arms anymore.
How do I know this is really you and not the
I
AI
have
version of you? You've loaded it up.
Yes, I have gone onto those sites because I like to know how they work. And I do have an AI version of myself, and it only took 10 minutes to create. I can type in how I want it to say. You can add emotion. When I finished, I thought, I wish I had bothered to do my hair because that was the only thing about it.
I'm sure you can just tell it to fix your hair. It can add makeup for you. It can improve your hair. It can change your lighting, your background, all automatic. Now, it's been 2 years since you have retired from the Air Force. What was that transition like?
For me, it was pretty exciting. It was a good time. It was expected and predicted, not like some of these unexpected transitions we've seen some of our senior military leaders going through now. I was really looking forward to learning new things and experimenting. After being in one environment my whole life, I looked at it like, oh, this is a whole big world out there, and I'd like to go see some of it. I do have empathy for people that transition from the military who are not retiring. Having a safety net of a retirement, things like that, definitely makes the transition from people who are retired from the Air Force different than people who have served for 1 or 2 tours, like those veterans I talk about that get out and start their own business or pivot to a whole new career.
You've had such an identity change, right? You don't have to wear a uniform. You're managing your own time and you're Mary O'Brien most of the time. What is that like for that change of people aren't saluting anymore?
I think it's harder in some ways for the people that I worked with. I still get texts to General O'Brien or ma'am, and I send back, oh, don't forget, it's Mary now. A couple people were like, it's too soon, but now it's been 2 years. I have my fashion advisor, my 25-year-old daughter, who was like, you can wear hoop earrings now, mom. You can grow your hair out. It helps reflect who I am now, which is open to bright colors, open to new experiences. It's been a really fabulous experience The other thing that is really nice is when I meet young people that never served, that don't know anything about my military career, we can talk about things as equals. I met a wonderful young woman who's doing work for AI detection to better protect the path of hurricanes. It turns out our parents live in the same small city south of Tampa in Florida. We had this shared experience. Do we evacuate our parents south to Miami? Do you go east to the other side of Florida? Or do you go west across the panhandle? A lot of times you don't know which way is the safest way. And by the time the path of the hurricane has been determined, everyone's out of gas and the roads are closed. We had a fabulous conversation, and there was none of that artificial barrier that sometimes would exist due to a difference in a military rank.
What is one of your favorite books that you recommend to others?
Oh, yeah. I read a great book. You have a podcast that doesn't spend time talking about AI, but I think you need to learn it from a different way. There seems to be extremes, be very afraid of it or go all in. I read a great book called Co-Intelligence, Living and Working with AI by Ethan Mollick. He's a professor, University of Pennsylvania. He also has a blog, and it's very practical. I read that book and I thought it was great because it wasn't that AI is going to do something to us. It's we are going to be able to shape the future of living and working with AI. He viewed it as a co-intelligence with the human in the lead of what you want the AI to do. I just really thought that approach was what we needed right now with things happening so quickly.
And tell me something about yourself that might surprise us.
I have 6 grandchildren.
I don't think I knew that. You have 6 grandchildren.
Yes, one of the blessings of being a blended family.
What is your grandma name?
The Big G.
The Big G? That's hilarious. I was not expecting that.
Yeah, they came to my 3-star promotion. So they know I'm a general. They know I'm grandma. And it turned into the Big G.
We'll have to share that picture of the 6 babies and your 2 babies. Thank you so much, Mary. What a pleasure for you to spend time with me. And I've definitely got to be more involved in what's the Cyber Guild's official full name?
Oh, it's just the Cyber Guild. Yeah, let me put a plug in there. It is a very welcoming place with a mission oriented to create the cyber workforce that we need for the future.
Again, thank you so much, Mary. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Oh, it was my pleasure.
Thanks, Mary. Thanks so much for listening to today's podcast. If you enjoyed what you heard, please share it with friends and family. If you'd like to follow us on social media, you can find us on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook under the Outspoken Podcast. Thanks again, and until next time.
Who are not retiring, right? Because
Is that your dog coming in?
My dog.
Your dog. I was like, it's either your husband standing over there or your little dog.